Good day, friends. Welcome to another Word of God. Today we're going to be pursuing, as I'm sure you've come to expect, the next part of Average Folks in the Afterlife, number 28, I believe. And reflecting on Jürgen's earlier contact with the advanced alien species, I'd like to contrast that with another experience of Bruce Moen's, again from his book Charting Unknown Territory, from his Voyages into the Afterlife series of some years back. And in this one, he is, let me remind you, he is part of an exploratory group at the Monroe Institute, perhaps 15 people, all of whom are physically lying in a darkened, quiet room, listening to hemisync tones and instructions from a central central source of intelligence at Monroe. And they're exploring various areas of the area they like to call Focus 27. There are many areas of spirit, and they had been labeled in a number of ways over the decades. And Robert Monroe, in his initial explorations, decided to call them focus levels of, 15, 19, 21, 24, 27. And in this one, we'll be hearing about focus 35, which is an area beyond where the human dead are. And that will be explained here. And also two other terms, the earth changes and the gathering. The earth changes are what Monroe experiencers have termed the rapture, the ascension process that others have felt close to. This change in consciousness, this elevation of spirit that all of us appear to be going through in our own inimitable fashions, whether we are church-going Christians or tree-hugging pagans or, paranormal explorers, winsome New Agers, doting on love and forgiveness. It does seem to be happening, and I spoke about my feelings on it in More Adventures in Eternity, rather influenced by what Maitreya had to say at the time. But, there are many views of what's going on, and I don't think we'll be able to narrow them down particularly. There will always be many views of these earth changes. We do seem to be undergoing a dimensional shift, as some people term it, moving from the third to the either fourth or fifth dimension. And there's lots of chatter about who's going to go and who's not going to be able to make it. Myself, I prefer to let that play it out for itself. And as I say, the earth changes are what the Monroe people term it, and the gathering is what they perceive as a group, as individuals contributing to a belief system, is the psychic vibrational area where beings from other planetary systems and galaxies come to observe our earth changes. And many of you will have thoughts on this, and here's some more. This is of interest to me because it's one of the few accounts where, other than the generalized attitude of aliens coming here and teaching us things and bringing us up to speed on various cosmic realities, here's one where Bruce and some friends of his teach this particular group of aliens something that they didn't know before. And it is quite a profound teaching, I must say, as you will hear. Before this exercise began, most everyone had expressed some excitement and interest in further exploring the Earth changes. To be sure, each of us viewed our contacts at the gathering through our own unique sets of filters. What we perceive is always coloured by our past experience and the contents of our personal library of images and beliefs. So, with all our baggage and preconceived notions, we were ready to explore and gather first-hand information once again. We used the same slingshot method to reach the gathering at focus 3435. From the darkness at ECF 27, at the Earth core crystal, I rocketed through the light at TMI there crystal and into the darkness beyond. I should mention that there is a Monroe Institute on Focus 27 that had been put together, not surprisingly, by discarnate, i.e. deceased, Monroe participants and graduates. But, that should be seen in the context of many buildings, landscapes, institutions are replicated in spirit. When the hemisync tones began to stabilize, I opened my awareness to the lightening surroundings and waited for an impression to form. Several odd shapes floated in and out of view. The large, dark, mottled snail shell-looking thing came into view again above me and floated downward out of view. Next, the long tubular structure with the large satellite disc shape on one end moved by and faded from view as it moved from my right to my left. Then I could feel something very large directly in front of me, giving off impressions of hard, shiny, metallic, and curved. I couldn't see it yet, but there seemed to be many individuals grouped together inside, and they were busily working at various activities. I took this to be one of the intelligences at the gathering, and so I opened my intent to communicate with them. I'll refer to this intelligence as Second Gath Group because they were the second group I encountered at the gathering. Second Gath Group isn't a name they gave me to call them. They might have had a name they called themselves, but it didn't occur for me to ask. So we're stuck with Second Gath Group as their moniker. As it turned out, there was a purpose in White Bear's teaching me his tonal language, just beyond being able to communicate with him. White Bear is one of Bruce's spirit guides. During my first encounter at the gathering, ordinary verbal communication had been sufficient. Second Gath Group didn't have a verbal language capability. They spoke in the same Star Wars R2-D2 beeps and squawks as White Bear did. If he hadn't patiently prepared me to communicate in this way, contact with Second Gath Group would have been impossible. To emphasize the way we communicated, how it sounded to my non-physical ears, I'll try to describe the sound of it, at least for a little while. I discovered White Bear was right. The method he taught me is a universal language. Still, you'll probably have difficulty understanding what I mean when you read. I turned to the Second Gath Group spokesman and said, "Shreep, wop, wop, rrr, pop, snap, nurt, nurt." It's completely unintelligible squeaks and squawks to the ear, but the sounds carried more information in two squeaks than do several paragraphs of text. Floating there in focus 3435, I faced a large metallic object I could feel in front of me and opened my intent for contact. Meep, meep, I toned out to them, indicating I was an explorer from the Monroe Institute's Exploration 27 program, who was interested in communication. Shreep, pop, came back, indicating it would take a moment for one of their group to separate himself from the rest and act as liaison. After a short wait, I had the impression that one of their group moved out to my immediate vicinity, distinctly apart from the massive craft I could feel nearby. Beep, I toned out to him, asking him to tell me who he was. And now we'll drop the tone language sounds. He said, in effect, "We are a telepathic wraith, all connected to each other's thoughts in an instantaneous manner. We are a group consciousness. It was somewhat difficult to separate myself from the group to communicate with you, but here I am. As a telepathic group, all other members of the crew can listen in on our conversation through me. What is your interest in communicating with us? I'm exploring this region of space to learn about something we call the Gathering, I replied. I'm one of 18 people participating in a program to explore beyond physical Earth existence to learn what we can. What is your interest in communication? We've come to this region to witness events taking place on the Earth, specifically the great event that is happening here to the Earth School. You know anything about that? We call it the Earth Changes, but there seems to be a lot of confusion about exactly what that means, I responded. At this point, Dar's voice came in on the tape and suggested I ask a question. I focused my attention on the second Gath group spokesman and toned it. I noticed there are many other groups gathered here also. What is your relationship to these other groups? We are mostly all members of an intergalactic group. You might call it a federation. There are also some loners here who came on their own to observe these events. They are not members of our federation, but are welcome to be here to observe. As federation members, we are part of a network that shares information in a cooperative effort to learn more about each other and the unknown. Every member of the Federation with the capability has a contingent here to observe, and we share our information with other members who haven't the capability. Dar's voice stated the next question. That's his guide at the base in Monroe. What proportion of those gathered here on Earth are Earth School graduates? I passed it on to second Gath group spokesman. Their actual numbers are very small, perhaps 5 or 6%, but their power is great, he replied. How do those gathered here identify themselves in their current locale? I asked my host, prompted by Dar's voice on the tape. As a network of aliens or other home-worlders, if you prefer, we each have our own home world in the physical universe. Each home world has sent a contingent here to observe the changes, as you call them. We are located here where you found us, in a relatively close proximity to Earth. But we are just a small group of astronauts here on a mission from our home world. It's our understanding that one of the potential results of the Earth changes, as you call them, is that Earth will be joining our Federation. What is the focus of your interest in your observation of the great event, as you call it? I asked, rephrasing the question Dar's voice suggested on the tape. We are here to try to gain some understanding of the energies involved in the great event, he replied. Calling my attention to the interior of his ship, he said, as you can see, we have brought the most sophisticated equipment available from our home world to record this great event. As I looked around the interior of their ship, my impression of the control room was that of a NASA moonshot, row upon row of computer monitors, technicians, sensors, control consoles, recording equipment, and other assorted gear. It felt like there was close to a football field size area in their ship, filled with technicians and equipment. Quite impressive. What sort of energies are you interested in recording? I asked. His answer came in a series of squawks and squeaks that translated themselves into images. The first one was an image of Earth that looked about 2 or 3 times the diameter of a full moon. As I looked at it, I wondered if this gave some clue as to the distance from Earth to second Gath group's ship. I could see the huge crystal within the Earth aligned to the axis of rotation. At one end, near the North Pole, a ring was placed around the crystal. The word love was engraved on the ring. In response to my question about the nature of the energies second Gath group was here to record, the ring slid from the end of the crystal to the center. With the images of the crystal and the Earth superimposed, the ring moved to the core center of the Earth. These images then translated themselves into the following information. The energies are about a change in the duality nature of the Earth School. When they're infused in the Earth core crystal, some of the confusion we Earth people have about this duality nature may be cleared up. The crystal symbolized the polarizing nature of the Earth School, where everything can be described in terms of opposites. Polar opposites like hot and cold, wet and dry, tall and short are just a few examples. Moving the ring labeled love from one end of the crystal to the center symbolized a change in which we in the Earth School would now recognize our confusion. We would have the opportunity to understand that love does not have a polar opposite called hate. That is a confusion caused by the duality nature of the Earth School. As a result of the ongoing Earth changes, the true opposite of love would be revealed to be no love or lack of love. As I watched the images and listened to the translations from the second Gath group spokesman, I noticed his flat tone and clinical description of the Earth changes. I realized he had absolutely no understanding of what he was describing at an emotional feeling level. At a mental level, the spokesman and his group reminded me of the Vulcan character, Mr. Spock, from the Star Trek series, totally incapable of experiencing anything at an emotional feeling level. Not a single member of this telepathic race had the slightest inkling of what love felt like. To them, love was just an energy like heat or light. It might be more useful to them if love's energy came in the form of a wooden log. At least then it would provide heat when burned in a fireplace. It would have some reason for existence. Any actual use for energy such as love was inconceivable to them. They were completely without any ability to perceive from an emotional feeling perspective and lacked any means of emotional expression of such energies. Responding to my query about any messages he might have for Earth's inhabitants, the spokesman replied, "Many of your people will make the leap to your Focus 27 soon and will have to exist there for a very long time. There will be a great reduction in overall Earth population. Do what you can to prepare your people for this event." Another doom and gloom scenario. Not sure I quite go for that. But anyway, that's just my opinion. "Can you give me a sign that will help validate the information I've received from you?" I asked, again prompted to do so by the voice on the tape. In response, I was shown the image of a comet with a very large teardrop shape. Existence of this comet would be a surprise to the general population of Earth. My mind flashed briefly back to my tour of the coordinating intelligences. Then, as I watched the comet approach Earth, in the background I could hear the line from the 60s tune that goes, "This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius." From that information I interpreted that the comet might come out of Aquarius in the zodiac, or might indicate the new way of thinking of the nature of Aquarius. I also noted that Uranus is Aquarius's planetary ruler, meaning the energies of the two are similar. So this comet might be in some way linked to events consistent with that energy which tends towards sudden, unexpected, bizarre changes, usually uncomfortable in some way. Next, I had the impression of something very far distant, millions or billions of light years away. Whatever this would align with Earth's rotational axis on the North Pole side, whatever it was. This alignment would allow connection with some form of energy that would enter Earth's energetic system. The approaching comet would provide a triggering event to establish this energetic connection. At the end of the image sequence, I was shown a crab, by which I took to mean there is some connection between the comet and the zodiac sign of Cancer, which is energetically similar to the moon. The moon's energies deal with the emotions, the distant past, and the feminine principle. A little bit of astrological input there. As a side note, I was a little flabbergasted after returning home to read in the Rocky Mountain News about the sighting of a previously unknown comet, Hayatuk, discovered by an amateur astronomer in Japan on January 13th, 1996. Whatever it all means, and he goes to an extent to explain that, I feel like the appearance of the comet Hayatuk gave me some level of confirmation of the information I received. Another of the voiced questions on the tape asked, what will be the emotional impact of the Earth changes on human beings? When I asked that question, my earlier suspicions about the feeling nature of the second Gath group were confirmed. My host could not use his normal tonal language to respond to my question. Instead, he attempted to tone back to me the sound in our English language that caused him confusion. Nothing in his tonal language equated to the energy of the word emotional. He could only try with great difficulty to repeat back the English language sound of my word. No, sha, all, impact, was his response, spoken in very broken tonal English, followed by a huge question mark. Yes, emotional impact, feelings. For example, if you were on Earth when this love energy entered the core crystal, what expression would you give that energy as an individual? I toned back at him. By the dumbfounded look on his face, I could see this guy was clueless. Clueless aliens. Oh, I do like that. We are a telepathic race, and as such have almost no understanding of what it means to experience anything as an individual. We are all connected in instantaneous access fashion, and all of us experience everything as a collective unit. As a member of our race, acting as an individual causes great disruption in the flow of information among the rest of us. It does happen occasionally, but it's greatly discouraged. We've had to develop a form of group consciousness that is relatively cooperative and uniform. This cooperation emanates from the group as a whole and is controlled by the group as a whole. Now, I was the one feeling a little dumbfounded, trying to conceive of and understand the implications of being a member of a telepathic race. I kept asking myself what it would be like to live as a member of such a race, where all minds are connected. What were the implications of each member's thoughts being freely, instantaneously perceived by all others? On Earth, that would mean the thoughts of an Aboriginal native in the outback of Australia would be running through the mind of a New York stockbroker. The thoughts of a suicidally depressed woman in China would be drifting through the mind of the Queen of England. The thoughts of a Muslim soldier engaged in a holy war would be flooding through every other mind in the world. It would do the complete and utter chaos of listening to 5 billion different radio stations, all broadcasting through the single radio receiver of my mind. For me to function at all as part of such a group, there could be no cultural, sexual, religious, ideological, or nationalistic differences whatsoever. Such an existence is inconceivable to me. Yet, Second Gath Group's telepathic existence had to deal with all these individual differences in order to function. No, I was the one drawing the blank. I was the one with the clueless look on my face. We in the Earth School perceive ourselves to be individuals, separate from the rest of the group, I responded. Most people here operate as if their thoughts can be held in complete privacy. I don't personally believe that myself, but that's what most Earth people believe and live by. Reap, rang, wacko, I toned to the spokesman, meaning the implications of your telepathic existence for the individual mind in the human Earth School are incomprehensible. Such telepathic connection does occur for some individuals here, but it is definitely discouraged. Here, we call those kind of people insane. Not too many years ago, we burned those kind of people at the stake as witches. If individual thoughts were not tightly controlled, the spokesman continued, with our telepathic ability, our consciousness would be jammed by the simultaneous reception of all the individual thoughts of the billions of inhabitants of our race. No one could possibly exist or think in such a jumble of random thoughts. And yet, I toned, that's exactly how we live in the Earth School, but without conscious telepathic connection. Now that is beyond our comprehension, exclaimed the spokesman. We always thought your way of living was impossible. Yeah, I think your way of living is impossible too. We in the Earth School evidently took a different evolutionary route to conscious awareness. Our adaptation was to close down our awareness of others in the group to survive and function as individual beings, separate from the whole. We, conversely, have evolved a way of thinking our thoughts as a telepathically connected whole, the spokesman declared. When you mention existence as individuals, we become more interested in communication. We want to learn how it is you Earth Schoolers manage to exist as individuals. This is one of the things we have come to observe and record. As for that other sound you made, that sound, we have no contact, zero understanding, no comprehension, nothing on file. Whatever it is not in our language or awareness in any form. But as explorers, we understand that many times great understanding comes from probing that which is unknown. The thing you refer to with your sound definitely qualifies as an unknown. Is this thing connected in some way with learning to feel? He asked. Yes, emotional impact and feeling are very closely related in Earth School reality. They are a sort of two ways of communicating about the same thing. I told him. Some of us view emotion as an energy and feelings as the impact of emotional energies. Really, this is great. The major goal of our mission here is to learn about feeling. That's why we brought all this equipment here and these technicians from our home world. Our primary mission is to observe and record whatever we can about this feeling thing, whatever it is. I see. And that's a lot of fine-looking equipment you have here too. Look, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm pretty certain all your instrumentation and hardware is going to be useless to fulfill your primary mission. The very next thing I heard sounded like the voices of 1,000 individual turkeys screaming at the top of their lungs and echoing around a huge hollow tin can. Squabble, 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 squabble exploded from the control room of 2nd Gath Group's ship. They had temporarily lost control of their group mind in the logical incongruity that they saw in my remark. In the feel of the sound, as hundreds of crew members shouted out in their thoughts, I heard things like, "What that earthling is saying is impossible. Our technology is so far ahead of theirs, he doesn't know what he's talking about." It took a good 10 seconds or more for the squabbling sound of the 1,000 turkeys in the big tin can to quiet down. I immediately knew I'd just witnessed an example of what happens when there is a strong individual expression within the group mind of a telepathically connected race. Utter chaos erupted in their thinking process as they reacted to the logical impossibility of my statement. After a short struggle, they got themselves back in the groove of their normal form of consciousness, and then the spokesman connected with me again. Now, I will stop there for now. The rest of the experience, as Bruce relates it, is fairly long, and it will take up another episode. So, with those thoughts on telepathic linkage in the hive mind and the chaos and anarchy of individualism, let us ponder on that for a bit, and we will return sooner than you think. And until then, be well, be whole, or be bits of a whole, and I'll see you. Or no, you'll see me. I won't see you. So long.